The Henderson City Council meeting Wednesday, April 17th, 2024 is called to order. First order of business is the approval of the minutes for the March 13th, 2024 meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I will move to adopt the minutes.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion made and carried. First order of business, we have a council member appointment with a position to fill. And I think the way we left it was if someone was interested, they should come to the meeting. And if someone is interested, would they please stand up and introduce themselves?
I'm Ariel Yucky, and I'm interested if no one else is interested. I want to step on any hopes. I'm Lisa Steinberg. Same with Ariel. Ariel's interested?
So there we are. Ariel, I'm pleased that you're here. Unfortunately, from my perspective, I put you on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that would give me an absence on the Planning and Zoning Commission if I appointed you if the council appointed you. So that's one factor in this. Lisa, I'm very pleased to see you here. Is there any discussion by the council? Somebody's got to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that we appoint Lisa Steinberg.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. So it's 3. No, it's fine. But it's 3-1. Lisa, at any point in time, you can show up and take the oath with Tim and become a council member, and we won't require you to sit through this long and boring meeting. Thank you. All right. Now we have Abdo's 2023 audit presentation.
Busy place tonight, so I'll try to keep it quick. But thanks for having me, Mayor and Council. We'll go through the 2023 audit results here. So I did ask Tim to print out the presentation packets for you tonight. So that's what we're going to be going through. We're not going to go through the audit report just like previous years. We're going to look at it as a high level, look at trends, not get caught into the
Can I just ask one question?
Yes.
If we appointed her, shouldn't she, when does she start?
She can start after she gets
She
sworn
has to
in.
take the oath and
And she can do it now, but she doesn't have to. I mean,
If she's on, she should do it now.
would you like to start tonight, Lisa?
Sure.
Do you have the oath?
What's in here?
The paperwork for her to sign?
he does.
Sorry, we're going to
No,
back
that's
up a minute.
That's okay. Everybody's first council meeting wants to talk to Simon, so
Right, I know.
Okay.
Hopefully she comes back for the second meeting.
I, Lisa Steinberg,
Hi, Lisa Steinberg.
solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States
Solemnly swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
and the Constitution of the State of Minnesota.
I pledge to fulfill the duties of council member of the City of Henderson, Minnesota,
I pledge to fulfill the duties of the council member of Henderson, Minnesota,
with integrity and impartiality,
integrity and impartiality,
to the best of my knowledge, judgment, and ability.
to the best of my knowledge, judgment, and ability.
Now you're stuck.
Do you have a pen for her?
Yeah, now you're back. All right, go ahead.
all right. So we'll go through required communication, we'll go through the audit results, your general operating fund, your other governmental funds, and look at your enterprise funds, how you compare to other entities in the state in your area, and then you'll be done with it. Any questions before we get started? All right. So the same thing as years past, our audit opinion, or the objective of financial statement audit is to provide an opinion of the financial statements that were free from material misstatement. So really what that means, again, we're looking at the numbers, we're looking to make sure that operations, year-end balances, classifications are presented appropriately. So a lot of people will hear your auditors are coming in, they're looking for fraud, they're looking for wrongdoing. That's not the case with a financial statement audit. Again, we are engaged to opine on the financial statements that are free from material error. So we use a lot of our judgment, we use a lot of sampling, a lot of different techniques on how to narrow down what we're doing based on what the city has going on during the year. So with that, you have a clean and unmodified opinion under generally accepted accounting principles, which is good. That's what you want. We're required to look at other areas of compliance at the state and the federal level. We do have one compliance finding to note, and that's going to be on page 4. So again, the state kind of dictates what areas they want us to look into for various tax income findings. They'll have us look into cash investments, a lot of different things that they might seem higher risk. So there was one construction contract that we looked at that we could not provide evidence or did not have evidence of responsible contract reform. So any contract you have over $50,000, this requires that form from the contractor, and that was not provided. So hopefully a one-off thing, but it is one compliance finding that we had during 2023. We also had 2 internal control findings, similar as prior years. Material audit adjustments, basically the same as we as auditors come in, we make various adjustments throughout the year to get the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And then limited segregation of duties. From a cost-benefit standpoint, the city opts to accept that risk. And with the small staff size, it's just important to know as you look through various things at the council meetings to always have that mindset to look at anything that might seem odd or might stand out, and just have that professional skepticism. Any questions on that? Okay. So we're going to jump to page 6. A couple recommendations that we have outside of the, that doesn't merit a finding, but some professional opinions that we have is to implement and continuously review your policies and procedures. So having those written policies and procedures in place will allow for better continuity. I'm sure Tim can attest to that a little bit. As you know, he came in and was onboarded, having something in place that is sound and structured to follow throughout the various processes would be helpful, especially when there's turnover. And then also audit recommendation, as we had in the past few years, continue to look at operations and look at rates, have that budget process to improve long-term financial plan, capital outlay, and then also continue to look at where your fund balances are and cash balances are compared to not only policies and procedures, but again, laying them out 5-10 years from now where your capital needs are. Will help with rate stabilization, keeping levies smooth, just makes things easier to plan out. Okay. Anything on the audit results before we look at some of the numbers? All right, so page 8, you're going to look at your general fund, which is your main operating fund. So what we're going to do is focus on your unassigned fund balances, which is going to be the orange graph there. And we're going to compare that to your fund balance policy, which is the black, and then also your expenditures, your budgeted expenditures in the general fund in yellow. So really what this is a measure of liquidity. It's going to compare where your balances are to your policy and what the actual results are at. So you can see the expenditures in the general fund have gone up from about $627,000 in 2019 and have jumped up to about a little over $800,000 in 2024. So really what you want to see is that yellow or the orange line fluctuate about the same as where the yellow is. So that means as your expenditures are continuing to grow in the general fund, that your reserves are growing to offset that. So you can see from 2019 to 2022, that has been the case. That has jumped up quite a bit over the past 4 years. You did have a little bit of a downward trend in 2023. We'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide. So there was a decrease in fund balances. And there's also an increase in budget expenditures for 2024. So a combination of those two things to drop that percentage a little bit. Your fund balance policy calls for 35% of expenditures. If you recall, a few years ago, that was less. There was a policy change that did increase that to 35%, and that's where our recommendation is at too. And League of Minnesota Cities recommends something similar to about that 35%. So you were moving towards that in 2021 and 2022, and then did fall back a little bit in 23, which would be a good segue to the next slide. So we're going to look at 2023, the budget for actual results. So that net change in fund balances, that third to last line, if that was 0, that would mean the city had a balanced budget during the year. It was a little bit off, about a couple $1,000, so more or less a balanced budget, right? $722,000 in revenues compared to $738,000 in expenditures, plus a $10,000 transfer from other funds. But if we look at the revenues, revenues ended up being about $776,000 overall, and that carried with it a variance in the revenues of about $55,000. So the primary driver of that was some various intergovernmental aids that the city received. A lot of it was the one-time public safety aid that came in at the end of the year, and it made about $42,000. So that's what put those revenues over what you anticipated. Expenditures also were over budget, so a lot of challenges, right? Inflationary challenges, other things that are going on. There are also some one-time costs during the year, some truck repairs, some sweeping, some snow removal contract changes. So your street department ended up being about $30,000 over budget. Short-term financing costs ended up being about $20,000 in interest, and then you had some one-time capital repairs in the general fund, a lot of it related to the HVAC, right? So, combination of all those things ended up pushing your expenditures over by about $84,000. So, the general fund started the year with $237,000, it ended the year with $190,000. So, again, that ends up being about 12.5% of your 2024 expenditures. Okay? Anything, Tim, you want to point out related to the general fund for 2023?
No, thank you. You got it all there.
Okay. All right, slide 10. Next slide is going to be looking at the trend in the general fund revenues. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, just knowing that about 90% of every dollar the general fund does collect is from either the taxes or intergovernmental revenue. A lot of it's going to be LGA, but as those budgeted expenditures do go up in the general fund, typically it's going to come with an increase in tax levy to help balance the budget. There just hasn't been a whole lot of changes to LGA in the past few years. Again, you have some one-off aids that may come in, but a lot of it is going to be restricted for specific purposes. Same thing with the expenditures on slide 11. If we look at the general trends, again, a lot of it is going to be inflationary in nature. Some changes in 2023 with onboarding Tim, changing the staffing and administrative position. You can see general government costs end up increasing a little bit. Public safety, a lot related to staffing and the challenges with that. Expenditures ended up being higher in 2023 there. And then the street department also ended up being higher for those aforementioned items related to 2023. Culture and Act ended up decreasing a little bit. A lot of that is moving the library to its own fund now that the operations are separate from Sibley County. Okay. So speaking of the library fund, the next few slides we're going to look at our special revenue and capital projects. So these are specific funds and dollars dedicated to these specific purposes. First one's going to be EDA. So there's about $2,400 in EDA fund balances in there. There were some changes in allocations. So and part of Lon's and Tim's time is going to the EDA now for their services related to that. So there are some payroll costs in there and some levy going in there too. But there's $2,400 in the EDA fund at the end of 2023, and then about $27,000 in the library fund. You did get rid of, or expended all of your ARPA dollars. There wasn't a whole lot left over from previous years. I think it ended up being about $2,500, $3,000. But those ARPA dollars are done with now in 2023. Okay. Capital project funds, so you have 3 project funds that are going on. You had some bond proceeds come into the 2022 to 2024 street projects. There's about $68,000 left for those various projects in that bond. You do have some trail costs that are continuously being incurred, not a whole lot during the year, about $2,300. And then you have the levy project going on as well. So those are the 3 projects that are out there. The big piece in 2023 was those bond proceeds to that fund. A lot of it was more so for water and sewer, which we'll look at in the next couple slides here. Debt service, there is a cash deficit in the debt service fund. So as you continue to look at your levies and look at the debt dropping off, that's part of that where we recommended those, looking at those rates and levies and eliminating some of these deficits as far as long-term planning. But you do have about $275,000 in assessments out there as well to be collected, and some different billings too related to the fire relief and the fire department for the purchases of the fire truck that will be coming in there as well. So overall, your annual debt service obligations are about $160,000 a year. There's a little bit of a debt dropping off in 2025 when the 2014 bonds mature. But other than that, it's going to be pretty consistent up until 2029 when the 2018 bonds do drop off. So as you look at levying and laying out your cash flows, that will be important to know as you look at your debt levy versus your general levy. Okay. Any questions on the governmental funds? So the last few slides here, we're going to look at your enterprise funds. So these are going to operate a little bit differently than your governmental funds. Rather than being funded by taxes and intergovernmental revenue, you really want to be focused on the charges for services. So really what this means is that the users of your water operations are going to be paying the cost to operate it, right? So what we're going to do is focus on the top graph and look at the orange, your operating receipts in the water fund, and all the enterprise funds going forward here. And then we want to compare it to your operating disbursements, so your payroll, your supplies, your cost to operate, plus the debt related to that. So really what you want to see is the orange exceed the yellow and the black on the top graph. You can see that it has not been happening over the past few years, and that's really causing the cash in the water fund to have basically a break even or be right around $0 overall in the water fund. So as that continues to operate at a loss, it is subsidized by other functions to help cash flow that fund. You do see that there is about $1.4 million in cash in that fund at the end of 2023, but that is specifically set aside for those project costs related to that infrastructure project that you bonded for during the year. So it can't be used for anything other than paying the contractor engineering costs related to that as the project continues to progress. Okay. So if we go to the sewer fund, it's a little bit easier to see on the operations and the total cash flow on this enterprise fund. So you do collect about $450,000 a year in operating receipts. There's some special assessment revenue that goes in here as well. But your cash flows you are generating positive cash flows in the sewer fund. And you can see the impact of some of the cash balances in that bottom graph as we look at the total cash there. So the orange is going to be that cash that's available to spend on that bottom graph, and then the yellow, and it might be green in yours, a little bit different color on yours. But again, there's a significant amount of unspent bond proceeds in this fund too. So again, it can be specifically spent on that project as it does progress. And the last of your enterprise funds is your environmental services fund. Typically has generated positive cash flows with a little bit of increase in costs in 2023, but you can see the impact again of those cash balances in that bottom graph. So cash balances have grown to a little over $20,000 over the past 3 years as you have generated those positive cash flows. And basically 2023 is a break-even year, so you can see the cash balances didn't change a whole lot from 2022 to 2023. Okay. So if we look at the city as a whole, and we look at all of what we talked about, and look at the cash balances all these funds. So you see that total cash ended up being about $670,000 in 2021. You did see a little bit of a drop in 2022. Total cash balances ended up being a little over $4 million in 2023, but again, keep in mind a big chunk of that is related to those restricted for those project costs. So again, important to know as we go through and as you look at those long-term plans, look at those levies, and building up some of those reserves is to keep that in mind as part of the budgeting process. Okay. So the last few slides here, we're going to look at your tax rates, mainly your taxes per capita. So ultimately, the tax rate's going to be what the impact is on your taxpayers as populations change, as levies change. But if we look at, again, focusing on the lines here, it's going to be the city of Henderson, and comparing it to cities under 2,500 population throughout the state, and then other cities in Sibley County, you can see where your tax rate has been at over the past 4 years. It was about 97% in 2020, and it has dropped to about 64% in 2023. So obviously a lot of that is related to changes in market values and the increase in market values. So it's important to know as you look at the trend in this and how you compare it to some of your peers, how you're trending in that direction as well. But overall, you do see a decrease in the tax rate overall year over year, which is positive. Unfortunately, we don't have any of the data from the state for the past 2 years. They're behind in giving it out for our data request. So we're a couple years older there, but again, overall, you can see where your tax rate has been in 2020 and 2021, has been under cities your size and cities in Sibley County from a tax rate standpoint. Okay. Debt per capita has been pretty consistent. That's really issued based on the needs of the city, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that one. And then I will go to slide 21. And as we look at, again, comparing where your current expenditures are at on a per capita basis to your peers, your current expenditures have been pretty consistent from 2020 to 2021 and 2022. And you've traditionally been under where your peers have been at. So you aren't spending as much on a per capita basis as the peer groups that we have in there. And then you can see how the costs in 2023 have increased, as we mentioned before, with the challenges to operate just generally overall. Capital expenditures, again, are going to vary based on the needs of the city. So it just kind of depends on what the needs of each city are and what projects you have going on and where you want to dedicate some of your resources. So with that is all to go through, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have, or Tim, if you want to add anything else, feel free.
So, at what percent has inflation raised their cost over the last?
I mean, it's,
Percentage on that?
I don't have a percentage on that. I mean, it's hard to say. Obviously, it does have an impact, depending on what, even just by department. I know, like, sewer treatment costs, and granted that you're in Murphy now, that's all part of the city of the sewer, but sewer treatment costs have gone extremely high. We've seen, heard, 25-30% increases just in cost of chemicals and things like that. Police staffing, not only just at the city level, but the county level, with the sheriff's department, and we've seen higher increases there. So I can't give you a set number by any means. It does vary year over year, but it does seem that everybody is battling the same challenges. Any other questions? Well, if there is, Tim has my contact information. He'd be happy to answer if anything does come up. Otherwise, thanks. Appreciate working with y'all and enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Congrats on the audit being the first thing that you did.
All right. The next order of business is Chad Adams. Needs resolution 2024-13 to submit.
Good evening. I think everybody's got a copy of the resolution, but certainly here as well too to answer any questions on the grant application for Tim Needis's 4-unit apartment project through the grant application for the Workforce Housing Development Grant Program. As you recall, we are the grant writer and we're helping Tim navigate through that process. So I do have all the numbers from him in terms of his construction costs and such, and he has been working with some different city staff individuals to determine the value of what the city's in-kind contributions will be. If you recall, for every dollar that the city provides for in-kind contribution or any other contribution for that matter, you can leverage that against $2 for grant dollars. So in this particular situation, what we're looking at for Tim's application is $54,825 of essentially city in-kind services, culvert installation, water and sewer access charges, and building permit waivers. So those are all incorporated in the actual dollar amount that we're looking at requesting from the state of Minnesota for the grant. Currently is $95,000. So there's a little bit of strategy there. We're trying to keep that under $100,000. One of the other components that I had mentioned previously is the city can ask for up to 50% of the total development cost for grant dollars, which again means that you would have to match $1 for every $2 that's requested. But I've noted that to be really competitive, you probably want to be under 20%, and at present we're at 15%, so that's a really competitive number. You're getting max points as well too for the size of the community, max points for the size of the project, which is under 20 units. We're at 4, so it's scoring very well from my perspective, but we don't know how many applications are out there in the state of Minnesota that will be competing against this. I think the only area that you won't get points is Henderson does not have a designated opportunity zone. So there's 3 additional points for that for communities who have those designated opportunity zones. But beyond that, I'm expecting it to self-score with max points. So those are some updates. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. We're on pace to submit it by April 30th. I'll be setting up probably a time with Tim to actually just physically come in and upload all the documents to Minnesota Housing to make sure that it gets set, and I'll work with Tim as well too in setting up an account through Minnesota Housing prior to that so that we're able to upload all the documents. And if you recall, this is a deferred loan, so the way the money will flow, there'll be a deferred loan agreement from Minnesota Housing to the city of Henderson for $95,000. Then essentially the city will create a grant agreement or loan agreement to Tim, Needis, a developer, for that same amount. So essentially that's how the money will flow. I think I mentioned at the last meeting as well too that there's an application fee. If the project is awarded, Minnesota Housing charges a $7,000 fee for the grant project. The way I've structured that is that Tim Needis will actually pay for that. They'll actually reimburse the city for that fee. So there's no additional cost there from the city of Henderson. It's the other in-kind items that you're contributing to.
You said we don't have an opportunity zone. Can you tell me what that is?
Opportunity zones were created about 6 or 7 years ago. And it was really interesting because there was a narrow window of about 60 days that cities had to identify a census tract in their community. In Henderson's case, I'm assuming it's just one census tract that will be eligible to receive essentially tax benefits through economic development purposes. Other larger cities that had multiple census tracts could only select one census tract. So as a quick turnaround, there aren't a lot of opportunity zones, I would say, in smaller communities, so it's not something that Henderson really substantially missed out on. But Minnesota Housing is using that as a variable for scoring points because they want to see investments in. Essentially, those opportunity zones are kind of lower income census tracts.
Okay, thank you.
Tim, would you say the $54,000 in kind is in this figure that Budget and Finance met with earlier?
Yeah.
So this is what it's going to cost us. Well,
There, it doesn't cost us what it, because we're waiving sewer and water charges. So it's basically, it's unrealized revenue for us, not an expenditure for us.
You know, back in Sac, $3,500 per, that would be waived. And then James worked with Tim Neatis on water service installation of $28,600, which would also be, waived, essentially. Building permit fees and the culvert installation.
right, but there's still an initial cost.
Yeah, there would be to the city.
My concern with it is just coming out of Budget and Finance that we've got to make up almost $55,000 this year. We have to find in cuts. That's my concern.
I'm not sure that that's accurate, that we would have to find it in cuts. I mean, it's simply unrealized revenue. We don't anticipate that revenue directly in our budget process. I think the mandate we've gotten though is to create housing opportunity, creating new housing in Henderson to fill a void, and this we've discussed is probably the best avenue we have to get something going at this point.
If I can just add, I think what you're trying to say is there's no cash contribution
Right.
coming from the city, and if this project didn't happen, you wouldn't be receiving any building permit fees, any water and sewer fees, or water installation fees. So it's essentially a wash if you go forward with the project or without. I think the one exception is probably the culvert installation, but there's going to be a cost to the city. And I think what I tend to try to advocate towards community officials is try to realize what the tax gains on this will be for property taxes.
So do we have a number on that, what we're going to gain out of this?
I've got some estimates on this, so I think this came from Tim, so it's estimated to generate, this is total property taxes, so it's all taxing jurisdictions, $7,200 a year. So I'm not sure what percentage Henderson's is. Oftentimes cities are between 30 and 60% of that total. So essentially in 2 years, you're going to pay yourself back in that culvert installation.
So ultimately, the cost currently for is the culvert. Otherwise, the grant will be,
The rest is waivers that we're capturing their value to leverage to get grant dollars. So again, that's $95,000 coming to Tim and his project to build apartments in the community. So it's probably one of the better investments I've seen with working with smaller cities.
I will make a motion to pass this resolution.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'm opposed.
That's fine. So motion made, carried, passed.
So I think one follow-up item is Tim did supply me with a letter of support from a local business, school right up the road, which is a requirement. If you know of any other businesses that would be willing to write a letter of support, just basically demonstrated we need more housing in Henderson, it would help the application. So if you have any connections there, feel free to contact myself or Tim.
Thank you, sir.
Anything else? Right. Thank you.
Police chief's report. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Phil Westberg has made a request to hear your full council.
Thanks, Keith. All right, thank you, City Council members. Welcome, by the way. Congratulations, it's awesome. Just want to come here tonight and take the opportunity to appear in front of you guys. We, the community members who live on Turner Drive, myself, and many others here, thank you for your support. Again, just come expressing our concerns on the for sale property adjacent to Hilltop, specifically the south property that abuts up to our property line. We understand that, the city's working through a lot of things pertaining to that property, and again, just are here tonight to express our concerns pertaining to that. We trust that you guys will keep us apprised throughout the journey as we work through that together. And again, just wanted to make our concerns known. So that is all. Short, sweet, to the point, unless there's anything you guys would like to share with us.
Do you have a specific concern?
Well, just as to what goes on with that property, right?
Right.
It's a unique property. If you haven't had a chance to walk it, I would encourage you to. The property line is very different than what you would expect. And in the images, obviously, right, there's that distinct tree line, and it seems like that's where the property line would be. On the end units, myself and Teresa, when they did the excavating for our properties, the people that were doing the excavating clearly took some liberties to go significantly farther than they probably should have, resulting in something for us as to where our property line would be adjacent to potentially what could be done with that space. So that's
about the school.
we're talking about. Yeah.
The south one?
So, if you guys want to talk about specifics, I'm always happy to do that. We don't anticipate.
Well, I just wondered if it was anything. I mean, literally, we're at the point where what we have to do now, and you're appointed to the Planning and Zoning Commission, is that property goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission because basically it's by the school putting it up for sale. The use will undoubtedly change.
Right.
So we have to come up with an appropriate zoning for that. That's the next step. And so until literally planning and zoning comes to us with a recommendation, that's our involvement to this point.
Yep.
And I understand your concern in the proximity to the property. That's why I asked for specifics,
Sure.
to see if there was anything that was really jumping up. But I guess you guys are going to know as much as we do
Yep.
as the process continues.
So the street we're talking about redoing, we're gonna go into that?
All we're doing right now with that street is hooking it back as at this point, it's a temporary hookup to
Turner.
to facilitate the project up there.
Right, like none of us can pass on the primary entrance for Turner today, just because they had, excavators on both sides doing that water main line. So it's just a dirt road right there. That's allowing us in.
Phil, does the school district have it lotted out? So is there
No,
posts
it's
up
just-
showing you the?
Yeah, there are, it's marked, so our understanding is it's been surveyed, you can still see the flags, at least some places. I mean, they're kind of tough to see.
Okay.
But as far as that, again, we didn't expect answers, right? We're just simply here expressing
Okay.
our concern as members of the community and appreciate you guys taking that into consideration as we journey further with these lots.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a request to appear before the council too, before we move on to this section.
Sure.
Okay. I have some papers too, so if you guys want to share.
Can you tell us your name, please?
My name's Alexis French. I live at 109 North 4th Street. I only have 4 copies, if you guys want to share them. I took the liberty of printing off the section of our city ordinance on other animals. In my copy, I have highlighted here that in 50402, no horse, cattle, sheep, or pigs, or goats shall be kept in the city without a license or permit. And then I also have 50405, the manner of keeping. I have the unsanitary, objectionable odors, and disturbance of other noise, annoyance, and then in 50406, I highlighted for clean shelters and structures on animals or fowl. That's the only thing I could find in the ordinance on birds was that word, or fowl. So I don't know if we're allowed to have chickens in Henderson, but so far I do see that we're not allowed to have pigs, ducks, or any other animals. So then I wrote on December 19th, I contacted the Henderson Police Department and spoke to the sheriff, Eric Carroll's, about there currently being a large pig, approximately 10 chickens, 4 to 5 ducks, and a concerning amount of excessive fecal matter and an odor thereof emitting from the small unkept enclosure within 20 feet of the entrance of my home. At the time when speaking with Eric, he told me that he was going to file a nuisance report and I would see the results. It's now been 4 months and the results that I've seen, the animals have been relocated to a smaller enclosure directly up against the homeowner's house and is closer to the entrance of my home. In addition, they concealed the enclosure with tarps so as not to allow anyone to see the condition and unsanitary manner these animals are being forced to reside in. However, the smell has not dissipated and continues to be of concern. When I contacted Eric on April 5th, he told me that the pig was not against the ordinance because it was a pet. However, its unsanitary living conditions outdoors and the manner in which it's being cared for indicates otherwise. When I expressed my concern, continued for the smell and living conditions, as well as the health and safety concerns for not only my child, but the daycare children all within feet from these enclosures, Eric said that he would file another nuisance complaint. I have yet to see those files and see any results to date. In fact, I'm concerned with the pace that this case is being addressed. It's a health hazard for our neighborhood to be exposed to foul and pig feces. My son continues to show respiratory issues and frequent bacterial infections that could be caused due to the exposure of these unsanitary conditions. I've lived next to this property and this pen for over 5 years, and we've endured excessive amounts of animals, including goats, roosters, and horses. If you look at the pictures I have in the stack of papers, you can see the enclosure from where the old enclosure is the first photo. That's where the old enclosure was, and that's the proximity from my vehicle to the old enclosure. And then if you go to the next photo, that's the new enclosure and the proximity from my entrance, our main entrance. And then the next photo is a photo of just the enclosure. If you look in the bottom right corner, this photo was taken on April 5th. And there is a open where the tarp fell over. And on April 5th, when I contacted Eric, the only thing that was done was that corner of tarp was then recovered. And then this weekend, it got up to 75 degrees. And I just think that's a horrible living conditions for those animals, and I honestly feel bad because they were roaming free in the yard, and up until I complained about the smell, and now they're being kept in this pen and behind a tarp where it's going to get hotter, and the smell is, when they kept them in these small enclosures, that's when the heat and the smell, it just got so bad in previous years. I put that last summer the feces and the smell was so bad there were maggots visible on the ground and were pouring out of their one and only fly trap. We tried to carry my son to the car and the car was covered in flies. We're unable to have any backyard picnics, grill, or play in our backyard. We could not have friends and family outside because of the living conditions of these illegal animals and the amount of flies and insects that came with them. Every person who's entered my property immediately comments on the smell and the living conditions of these animals and would ask what was being done about it. For years, this has affected our quality of living and has continued to be of a discussed concern that nothing seems to be done about. So I'm asking you, the City Council, to enforce our ordinance laws, have these animals removed, and that the homeowner no longer be allowed to house in unclean conditions of any more animals that go against city ordinances.
All right, thank you, but I think this has got to go to the city attorney, and I'm not comfortable discussing this in a public meeting.
So the only reason that I'm here today is because when I discussed the sheriff, I felt like I was not getting anywhere, and I felt like he continued to get shorter and shorter with me with trying to communicate. And therefore, when I asked the county who I could talk to above the sheriff in town, they told me that the city council are the only people, that we're municipal, and that you guys are basically the boss of the police.
Well, we are an autonomous political entity. We're not part of the county per se, so yeah, it is our business and not the county's. We will certainly take this under consideration, and I think we will refer it to our city attorney.
Well, I don't think it just needs to be taken under consideration. It needs to be taken care of.
I think
I had
we
somebody
need
come
to
down
be
to my house
very
the other day.
careful about how we discuss this. This is an allegation against a neighbor. That we do not want to get too far into this.
I do like that I got to hear you get sworn in, and I heard the word impartiality, and I think that I'm very nervous to come in here today. This is a small town, and with the municipal thing, it's like I don't know where to turn. You know, this has been 8 years of roosters, goats, horses, chickens, ducks. I don't want to go through another 90-degree summer of smelling feces.
And we will take this very seriously, and we will follow through with the proper procedures. That's literally, I think, our position. Thank you.
And then my other follow-up question is, so when I asked Eric what was going to be done about this, he said that I would see results, and that's been 4 months. So how long do I give the council to see results? Because, I mean, my next step would be to go to the state or...
Now, we will refer this to the city attorney. That's the way it needs to be done.
Right, but I'm just saying, how long can I expect to see results? Because it's April now.
We have started the investigation on it, and we have referred the issues with the animals to the Minnesota Federated Humane Societies, so they're going to be investigating that, because we feel we don't qualify as animal, to say if an animal is being abused or not. So that's why we referred that to them. And also the nuisance ordinance has been filed, and that's going to take about 20 days to get that finalized. And then after that, if they still don't clean it up, then they have to go to court. So then that goes into the court system.
And by clean it up, you mean remove the animals, right?
Remove the animals and clean the yard.
Okay.
All the other stuff that's there. I understand there's all other stuff there.
Yeah.
So, in essence, I can't tell you exactly how long it's going to be, but by the time I'm done, it's only 20 days with doing my investigation, so.
Okay.
And last fall, I just went and talked to them.
Right, yep, and I know we discussed that, yep.
And I got the assurance that they were going to clean it up.
Yep.
And if they did, as you said, move things around.
Right.
So that it looked like they were doing something.
Right, yep.
So now we're following through on this.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. Do you guys want to keep those copies, or do you need to collect them back?
Well, I'd like to keep it.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, yep.
Thanks.
I don't think my name is on there, but Eric did put my name on the complaint now, so
Did you fill out a request for?
I can, if that's for me, I can do that.
This is the report, I'll get the report request for you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, sounds good. Yeah, I'll hang it on anyways.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
All right. Let's do the SEH policy update.
Thanks, everybody. I don't have a direct agenda item for you. I'm more to talk about the project. I do have a schedule from Jerpy if anybody wants to see this for a good idea of what the project's going to be going on this year. Realize many of you probably haven't seen it yet, so I will get that passed along here. You might see one right there. Couple over here too. So contractor did the pipe bursting sanitary sewer pipe bursting, did the service connections, and then we got a heck of a lot of rain. So not much going on. During that time, they didn't complete the service connections, I think on Tuesday morning. Otherwise, they do plan to be back out tomorrow and get back onto water main on South Street. Otherwise, just the generality on this. I did highlight a couple items on here, which are kind of some of our milestone items here. So phase 1 streets, which is basically everything they started last year. And then the other streets, kind of that area, the rest of South Street, Mill, 7th, those areas, hoping to be paved by about the first week of June. And moving into the rest of the project afterwards. So final completion by the contractor. They should pretty much be done by about mid-August with all the major stuff. Some topsoiling, seeding, restoration type stuff. Carrying them into September. The dates on this, the end of this calendar, we've actually asked them to push them forward so they get seeding done towards the end of August instead of into September, so we have time to get things watered and to grow before we freeze up. But that's just kind of a generality of the schedule, which is on contract. The dates they have on here do meet the contract dates. So with that, I guess, see if there are any questions on the overall schedule or kind of what's going on, which isn't much yet. But
they're not communicating very well with emergency services when they block off roads.
Has it been them or has it been the utility guys?
It's been them when they were on the road going into the new addition up there.
okay.
They had that totally blocked one day, no
And
egress.
that's my concern
Yeah.
too.
Turner or what? We're talking about the west side here.
Oh, Randy's, when they were working on the end of.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. They didn't have the temporary road built up yet at this point? Okay. Yeah, they should not have blocked it off, and I guess that was where they had.
Well, I know
Until
the
the ground's
contractor
done.
himself was sick and wasn't on site, and he's really, really conscientious, so.
Okay. No, I apologize for that. They were definitely not supposed to just block people off. That's what the temporary roads are for.
Yeah, that's my big concern, is that we provide everybody with the access, the best access we can give them during the whole process.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways around it. It's going to be difficult with some of those narrow streets with one way in, one way out, and we're going to have people going around construction. But making it definitely not full closure at any time. And we'll make sure we get that better taken care of. Then.
So how does this coincide with Ridge Road? What are you doing there, and anybody else is there with this completion?
Anything on Ridge Road, on the south end of Ridge Road or south?
With the closing of Ridge Road.
Everybody else is there.
Sure. So they do have the temporary road built in along the south side, the southwest corner of the intersection, South Street. Their intention is to work on the water main probably tomorrow and Friday, which is going to be the most disruptive part to.
Right, but at some point they're gonna close that off there, going up the hill.
Oh,
He's talking about the closing of the hill itself.
going down to 93.
Right.
Yeah, so they need to get that done. That's a little bit lower priority for them because 93 sells. I haven't gone down there. I was intending to do that today, but I assume it's going to be closed up pretty.
Well, that's gotta be it, but I'm just, what about people getting around the other way? Well, it seems like you got a completion date of what, 10/5, 9/28, 10/5 for that's seeding. Blacktop is
Their
end
schedule,
of August, somewhere in there.
their schedule is primarily being complete with the first phase of the project, which is everything that started last year, first week of June. Ridge Road, they didn't actually include this specifically in there, going down the hill, but I think that Ridge Road was considered part of their phase 2-ish, I think they call it. So that would be hopefully having South Street open, South Street, 9th, Minnesota open to get people going around, circulating through there, and then working their way down the hill.
But I mean, that'll be open and blacktop and everything.
Yes, that'd be blacktop by first week of June. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's the road construction happened last year is everything up to the top of gravel. And they have 2 blocks of water main, a little bit of storm sewer, and then all the utility work on South Street, 9th, and Minnesota, west of 7th, will be complete. So there's not going to be a lot of utility work necessarily left. It's just putting the road back together. So in this schedule, they do have the concrete crews showing up about a month from now, mid-May. So that's
Lots of curb and gutter, sidewalks and whatnot.
yeah, once the curb and gutter goes down, then the paving blacktop will happen pretty quick afterwards. So a month more gravel conditions, getting curved, and then paved about 2 weeks after that. They do intend to kind of switch traffic around a little bit. We'll try to keep some of that notified, but we're on the bend there, I guess, at Minnesota and 9th. They try to switch traffic around 4 to 8th and all that through there. So
They got one daycare lady that pretty gets cold right off.
okay.
I'll be clear to get it.
Yeah, it's a narrow road, and they're going to be doing the curbing is my biggest concern. Because concrete trucks take up a lot of space. Trying to figure out a way to get that through. The contractor has it all plans. They understand we might have someone with a flag or stop me for 10 minutes at worst here, hopefully, but it's
just a good thing we had a good fall last year.
yes, yeah. If we had a fall,
A little quicker.
yeah. They were fortunate to work as late as they did last year and get as much done as they did. That's kind of the general project update I do have for you, I guess. So unless there's any more questions on that, I did check in with our bonding bill folks, I guess, trying to get some funding for that water plant. So the $3 million request is still in. I mean, the representative and the senator should both be aware of that. So I did.
That's the Fed.
The state level.
The state, okay.
Yes. Yep. So
So it's at 3?
that's $3 million.
Okay.
Yep, so that'd be half the project cost.
Yeah.
And so my understanding right now is that the House is going to be starting to do their meetings here soon, where they'll call in the city and say, come present your 5-minute spiel on your project.
Yeah.
So you may get notified to do something like that in the next couple of weeks. You'll get notified, and 2 or 3 days later, you'll need to be up at the Capitol. So hopefully a little bit longer than that, but it's usually less than a week. So just make you aware of that. Hopefully you'll get notified saying we need you up there, and SEA should have some documentation we'll provide to you. We don't present it, but we can hand out some stuff that'll make things a little easier. The federal level, the senators have not released their request yet, their directional spending request. So we should be seeing that in the next couple of weeks, but we don't know exactly when that's going to be. So that's what we did last year. It was not successful, but that would be a larger request, because I think that's 80% of the project cost.
That email came in like an hour ago.
Okay.
Both of them, so they're ready to take those.
Okay, good. So we can help with that. Otherwise, it should be basically the same as last year's. So that's where that one's sitting. See if there are any other questions, anything else I can help out with? Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you.
Chris, will you send me that last time? The email, and you have a copy?
March 2024 monthly business report. So we have 34 assisted public cases, 3 animal complaints, 17 assisted other agencies, 3 arrests, no domestics, 2 ordinance violations, 1 traffic citation was written, 56 traffic warnings were written, or not written, but were given, 96 directed patrol, and 2 info only. We had 1 warrant arrest, 2 DUI arrests, and 1 vandalism report. Wayne Nagle started his field training yesterday, and I'm hoping that by the middle of June that he'll be up and running by himself, as he's going to be a relief part-time officer. The body and squad cameras are supposed to be here next Wednesday, and then hopefully we'll have them up and running, I'm hoping by May 1st, but I'm not going to guarantee that. I don't know if we can schedule it quick enough to get the training done and stuff. And the new squad is expected the end of June, first part of July. And then I also have this, due to there's been a number of rifle situations with involving people recently. One of them was in Gaylord. I think there was like 5 other towns within 50 miles of here that have had rifle situations involving police officers. And this all involves the heavier armor that you have to wear when you end up in a situation like that. That's what this bid is for, is the heavier armor. That if you have to go to one of these calls to assist, that you have to wear the heavier armor. That's what that's for. So, any questions?
Is that something we need to vote on for?
I think I would like to have it tabled a month.
Okay. And also this other thing with the ordinance, that's proceeding right now. We haven't heard back from the SPCA yet. They haven't called us back or messaged back yet.
I would just encourage you on that ordinance to pursue our ordinance violations as efficiently and quickly as you can.
Yeah, that's what we're working on right now. I think the 10 days is almost up already for the first letter, and then we'll move on to the next one. So.
All right, thank you. All right, Tim?
What I have right now is the Henderson Feathers submitted today proposals for the former church property. I think at this time, if you wanted, it would just be essentially a motion to this and to come together. Hopefully, they want to have this start by the next council meeting, so we still have to talk to Jason. He's not here tonight to look through this, lease terms and such. So.
You want to just briefly give an overview of what they're proposing?
Yeah, so essentially, they're proposing a lease agreement of 5 years, or until purchase if they, if that's sooner, or they have an option that they'd like to lease to own term. So again, those are things that would need to be determined. Lease amount of $500 per month, and then the typical city responsibilities of general insurance policies, site maintenance, including mowing and snow removal, heating, electrical, upkeep. They would also take care, Henderson Feathers would take care of building maintenance, cleaning, painting, heating, fuel costs, electrical service, water, sewer to the city. Let's see. They are looking to make some improvements to the facility, including deck, doors, landscaping, sidewalks, a few other things that they've talked about. But they would like to have an agreement with the city that the cost of those improvements would not be passed on in the event of a sale.
So the city is paying for the improvements?
Pretty hard to determine.
Feathers will pay for it.
I'm sorry.
Feathers will pay for the improvements, but yet you don't want to pass on.
We don't, if we buy the building, we don't want to get charged a second time for what we already paid for.
Gotcha.
For
Okay.
any number, it'd be
Yes.
Okay.
Well, my feeling about it is that 5 years is probably too long. I'd like to see it a shorter duration. A right of first refusal, not for if we decide to sell it, give them the right of first refusal on the purchase of it. And I just think there's details to work out. And I don't know if we should just designate somebody to work out the details and come back to us with an agreement that we can live with.
I think Tim, working with the city attorney,
Okay.
keeping in mind what Keith just said, a shorter than 5-year lease.
How much shorter are you?
Well, I'm thinking 3 years, just because, if it goes and it's going swimmingly, 3 years will pass really quickly. If something flounders, maybe 5 years is too long to be able to.
So the other part, the hummingbird part will stay as is, right?
The Hummingbird Garden will continue to operate but we do intend to add another one up on the hill. The problem with that one
Is flood.
continuously is the flooding. So at least we'd be out of flood zone up there.
Especially if you have an event or something.
Well, yeah, we want to be able to have, you know, those gardens as a portion of the educational aspect of the center. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but Carrie Rice started a grant with the Minnesota Department of Education that for $50,000, and half is to be used towards developing the Hummingbird Center, and the other half is for the school, and it basically gets the kids involved in helping us get the center up and running. So it'll help us pay for some costs, and then encourage them for more educational purposes.
It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I have a question. Anybody have an idea what you're going to sell the building for?
What we'd sell the building for?
Yeah.
It's not for sale.
Well, not now, but what was the thought? If they're going to be there only 3 years, what's the sale price?
Well, we're not saying they're only going to be there 3 years. We may just renegotiate the lease, or they may be like, hey, we want to buy it from the city. I don't know.
We pretty much
Right
have
now, the
that.
Diocese of New Ulm has designated it for the National Ruby-throated Hummingbird Center.
It's kind of part of the terms of the sale. But they're just saying that if something happens and feathers goes belly up, that we're not locked into a 5-year.
But nobody has a clue how much it's worth.
Well, it's never been appraised.
Well, and who knows with improvements, et cetera, how much more it will be worth at that time. I don't know as you can say what it's worth currently, can we?
I don't know. I don't know if the diocese had that information.
There was no appraisals, no.
So at this time, no, we don't.
I'm just asking on their benefit, because if you guys don't want it, and they do, then there's got to be a number in there
Oh,
somewhere.
I'm sure that's something we would work out.
Yeah, we don't have that. We're just trying to get up and running as our whole
Yep.
game plan right now.
Is it the church and the center?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
You
This
guys-
is just a starting point.
No, that's all.
That's it? City council members?
On this issue,
On any issue.
My-
Whatever you want. Throw it out.
I want to ask for a dead-end sign down by Centennial Lutheran Church, please.
But
Now with the road closed, everybody's coming down our way, and they're driving down that street thinking they can get onto County Road 6 that way.
Why?
I don't know.
Is it because the map?
I don't know if their
People-
GPS is sending them that way.
I GPSed on Monday because I had to go to Elk River or something. I was trying to decide which was the quickest way to get around. And it was, maps was sending me out County Road 6 yet. And it takes sometimes weeks for construction projects to finally get picked up by maps, which is,
Yeah. Can you check with Tim Becker to see if do they
Yeah,
need
see if
to
they
like
give us
send it in
See
somewhere
if they'll
that
put
it
up a
doesn't show up?
temporary,
yeah.
at least a temporary
Yeah.
fix.
so they're
Yeah.
just coming right back, going west, is what you're saying?
Well, if
Because technically, there used to be a road that
Yeah.
went back to the water treatment plant
County
back
Road
there.
6 used to run back
Yeah.
behind the Lutheran
And that's
Church
why it's-
and out that way before they rerouted it.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe some map shows it yet, but it's like it's,
People think they can go down 6th Street
Yeah.
and get through, and that one's blocked off completely.
Yeah.
But you can go if you turn on Walnut or whatever it is.
Right, but people are
Get
going
around
back
But, yeah.
to the hillside.
Well, when you're on 5th Street, you can't, until you
So they're getting
you can't tell the
back
barriers.
to that property owner even back there?
it's not back to Jim Ingles. Yeah, probably right across the bridge. I mean, it is, eventually it'll work its way
There's a
out.
sign that says private property or something.
there is.
But that's up further though, they probably don't see that until they're on it.
I don't know if we have a dead-end sign laying around that we can
We
just go
don't.
put up. We don't?
We
Okay.
determined that already, but maybe we can get one from
That
the
is
county.
a
instead of-
psychological
Yeah, 'cause it's-
eval
yes.
for any-
Well,
Touch
they're
Tim.
tearing that part of the pavement off pretty quickly, so.
That'll probably rectify it too. All right,
Okay.
anybody else? Bills.
I'll make a motion to approve.
second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion made and carried. Sign the bills. Any old business? Do you want to go over the cash balances or anything?
Just like to look at
Cash balances.
end of month bank balance is $2,945,376.69. If you want to look at cash balances, it'll be the next sheet on the balance sheet. Just take a look at it from the wall. It's about 14 feet. Yeah, we're not going to go through cash flow.
Good. Another done? Old business? New business?
Tim, did we want to talk about the equipment certificate?
It's up to you if you want to.
Or should we wait till the next meeting?
Well, Lana's gonna call and get this equipment certificate moving tomorrow. What we've dedicated so far is good. We have up to 3 years to spend that money from the equipment certificate. So any additional purchases that we include in that, he is recommending that we hold off until 2025 to make any of those purchases.
So we can use it for buying the squad, and then after that, we want to hold off on additional purchases.
Makes sense.
So,
Yeah, we'll talk to Ellers tomorrow or Friday to get that moving. Because it originally was going to be postponed all the way out till November, December. We'll bring it up to
Okay.
September-ish.
Alrighty.
squad.
Any informational items? Revised meeting schedule? Nothing.
There is a meeting next Wednesday?
There is a meeting next Wednesday.
Okay.
That's all we have to say about that.
Okay. So I thought it was...
Meeting next Wednesday is the original time, 6 p.m.
Okay.
6 p.m. next
Got
Wednesday.
it.
Yeah.
For the equalization,
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
that's a short one, and then we'll have it regular.
No, that's the only one.
Yes.
And
That's the only one.
I mean,
All right, we got to adjourn. I broke the table.